we were still just kind of like trying to figure out how to be the best church players, right? I was just trying to be as different as I can. At that point, I was like, well, I'm gonna be the best pedal steel player in my church.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's me here, Michael Franti, and welcome to this week's episode of the Stay Human podcast, presented as always by the great Gibson Guitars. And speaking of incredible partners, my friends at American Songwriter curate an amazing list each Sunday of the top 5 podcast episodes across their entire network. And if you want to receive this thoughtful curation straight to your inbox each Sunday, go subscribe to the American Songwriter Suncast newsletter at americansongwriter.com/Suncast. I'm just super pumped to have this guest today because somebody whose music I've loved but just a person that I just love. And so he is one of Rolling Stone's 100 greatest guitarists of all time. And 4-time Grammy-nominated pedal steel guitarist Robert Randolph jumped from spiritual to secular music and found an audience among blues fans, roots rock aficionado, jam band followers, pop music lovers, and through his fiery, passionate instrumentals and heartfelt music, he's been able to earn fans like John Medeski, Eric Clapton, Dave Matthews, T-Bone Burnett, and so many more, including myself. So please welcome to the podcast, the great Robert Randolph. What's up, Robert?
Yeah, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Hey, man, it's great to see you.
You too, bro.
We've had to change schedules around, and I've just been like so excited and eager to talk. So thanks for being here today.
Well, that's because you live in a fabuloso life out there in Bali. Got all of us pissed off at you during the pandemic. You out in the mountains and the woods and the
rice
trees
fields,
and
chasing my 3-year-old around. Yeah,
the water and the beach and nature, and we all in here stuck in smoke and smog and the cold and.
Oh man. Well, you make it look beautiful, man, the way you just resonate with your love, with your music. And I remember the first time I saw you was at Bonnaroo. I don't know if it was the very first Bonnaroo or one of those, but
yeah,
first, second, whatever it was, but it was Bonnaroo, man. And I just heard you from a distance, and it was one of those things where I was like, whoa, who's that? Who's playing that? And I heard this crazy slide guitar and just these incredible vocals and harmonies from you guys. And I came up and just watched out. And I remember it was like hot as hell out there. And I was just watching you guys in this pile of dust that was getting kicked up by people dancing and having a good time. And I was just blown away. And I've been a fan ever since. I want to talk today, obviously we'll get into songwriting, but I want to know, where did you come from? Like, where were you born? What was your family like?
Man, I was born in New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey area here, town called Irvington, which is right next to Newark, right? Small little town. But yeah, born and raised in New Jersey, grew up in the church, Pentecostal church, a very old school Pentecostal church.
Pentecostal, yeah.
Yeah.
The Revelations.
So, the Revelation, brother, and our church is very old time, it's like, if you go in there right now, right, it's 2021, you would think like it's like 1957, right? Because of the old songs and just the old way, and so we grew up in church, and the history of our church is the pedal steel guitar is this organization called the House of God Church, which started in the year 1903. So it's one of the oldest American Pentecostal organizations. And the pedal steel guitar has been in our church as the main instrument since the 20s.
Wow.
So there were like our own versions of Muddy Waters and Hendrix, and we had our own people like that. Yeah. And the history of our church was each guy, right, was like that person. It was like, we had a guy named Willie Eason. It was a guy, Sonny Treadway, Henry Nelson, and Ted Beard, and Calvin Cook, and the list goes on and on and on. But these were like our heroes, right? Wow. And these churches were sort of like, so I'm from New Jersey. So these churches were in every hood on the East Coast, from Boston all the way down to Miami, all the way over to Compton, right? Because it's like a small organization. It's not that big, maybe 12,000 members worldwide. But it was our own chitlin circuit. So I grew up watching these guys play, and I kind of wanted to be like those guys, right? And so, I mean, that was sort of the history. My family, my great-great-grandfather, grandmother, my great-grandmother, my grandparents, my parents all grew up in this organization.
Wow.
And we would travel. That was like our own little like chitlin circuit club. You would do that a couple times. Well, first of all, every Sunday at the local church in New Jersey here. But then there would be all these sort of like our own festivals, right? There would be like a program. You go to South Carolina, you go to Charleston, you go to Charlotte, you go to Baltimore, you go to Rochester, New York, you go to Harlem, you go to Detroit, Chicago. And that was our own thing. So I grew up watching these guys, and I only wanted to be like them until I later on, in probably like 1990, I want to say 96, I got introduced to one of my cousins gave me a tape of Stevie Ray Vaughan. And so,
oh, wow.
That basically changed
you. Hey,
yeah.
So how old were you? I mean, obviously you grew up in the church, but at what point did like an instrument get handed to you? Or do you remember even just singing in the church? Or like, what was your intro into the musical aspect of it?
Well, first of all, our church is probably 70-80% music, right? The service itself. Mm-hmm. And so my whole family, like when I mean my whole family, I got my father's side of the family is easily 300-400 people, right?
Oh, wow.
So out of those 300-400 people, there's like 300 singers, great singers, right? Yeah. So, and musicians and people like that. So we all grew up as a part of that. I was originally a drummer all the way up until I started playing the lap steel, pedal steel guitar. So I started playing the drums at age 5. So I was like the drummer in the church up until when I started playing pedal steel, I was about 15.
Oh, wow.
I started late, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that was basically it, man. You know, I grew up doing that as a drummer. I was a great drummer, right? Don't we all think so, right? And no, but I was actually really good on the drums.
I believe it. I mean, I feel it in your playing as a slide player. You know, you can hold the whole thing just by yourself.
Oh man, thanks.
So, when you were a kid, what did your parents do? What did they? Was it just the church that they were doing, or did they have a job during the week also?
Yeah, my father was an electrician. He worked. My father was an electrician. He worked. My mother was just a straight church preacher. Mm-hmm. So was my grandmother was a nurse and a pastor, and many of us. But for the most part, all we did was go to church and play music and go to church.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what it was. I mean, you go to church 3 days a week, right? Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. That's just the regular schedule.
Right. That's the church schedule.
Yeah, that's just your local church schedule. And then everybody has a program in between those days. Some days you go to church twice a day, right? And then people have revivals and programs. So it's really, I mean, look, man, you could spend easily 200 days a year just doing church.
Wow.
Which is funny, right? Because knowing what I know now, I tell a lot of kids now, it's like, when you go to church that much and you're playing one instrument or you learn how to play or you're trying to learn, you just get all this experience. It's kind of why when we, as a band, when we started playing, right, we were already ready to perform because we've already been through the church boot camp, which is getting yelled at, you're too loud. That's the wrong song. That's the wrong key. That's the wrong note. That's not the right mood. You got the devil in you. Oh, thank God for you today. Like we already been through that, like hundreds of hours of that. So by the time you're ready to perform and it's not just us, it's most gospel church musicians that come from church, right? We all come from that. Al Green, Sly Stone, and the list goes on and on and on, right? Beyonce and everybody else. You just grow up as a young age. Like that's your artist development. Right. So for most people, my brother that's older than me, he's now a vocal coach. He was like the star growing up. So he was like, he had sang in church probably 1,000 times because he was like the child prodigy. So it was stuff like that. That was what our life was like. I mean, we grew up in the inner city, and you go to school and you sneak and you listen to rap music and R&B because
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
4 brothers, 1 sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so your house, the home life, what was that like? You know, I grew up in a big family too, and just trying to get ready for school in the morning was a line at the bathroom, and dinner time was like grab the chicken as fast as you can before your brother does, because there's not enough for everybody to get, you know, seconds or whatever. And what was like for you as a kid and your siblings and just being in the house?
Man, you know, we actually had it pretty good. We didn't have a rough upbringing, right? I mean, my father worked a lot. He still does, right? My mother is like the glamour queen, so she's always expects excellence, and so does her mother, which is my grandmother. So it's like everything has to be excellent and super clean. So we grow up, and you got to clean the house 5 days a week, and you got to wash it down and scrub it down, and my mother, who's a great cook, and so she used to cook dinner and all that kind of stuff growing up. I mean, we didn't have it bad, you know. I mean, other than what's around the neighborhood, we were pretty well off in terms of ghetto well off.
And was school?
We wasn't poor, you know.
Was school something that you dug, or was it something that was like, oh God, we got to do all this church now, I got to go to school too? And what was the school life for you?
Yeah, well, you know what's funny about that, man? You know, like school for us in those days, it was really like, it's like almost like it was a non-priority. And you know what's crazy? That's really why, like, me and my foundation, which is the Robert Randolph Foundation now, really focuses on education, because it's kind of like the theme, at least when we were growing up, it's kind of like school in the 80s and the 90s, which like you just go to school, right?
Right.
And it's very different now, where now there's all these outlets and this and that, but it was just kind of like go to school. And we were coming off of, a lot of people don't understand the American timeline of education. So when my father went to high school and their age group, like you went to school until you learned a trade or a skill at school.
Yeah.
So many of them never graduated high school, right? Because you already, by the time you graduated, you learned how to be a plumber, electrician, a seamstress or whatever. And you went to go work in factories. I mean, that's the Black American experience.
Yeah.
For, you know, in that timeline, in that frame. So by the time we went, we were going, my brothers and anybody that's currently like 55 and under, I would say now. Then it became like, oh, you can go to college. Everybody must go to college and that sort of thing, right? So for me, especially growing up in church, it was like church was more important than school. Your parents made more emphasis on going to church than it was at school. That's why you see so many gospel musicians out here playing in the concert world now, because for many of us who are all like preachers' kids, right? You basically gave more emphasis in getting ready and going to church than you did in school. And so you would be at church many nights till like 11 p.m. and midnight, right? If it was a revival, easily you don't get home till midnight. And then you got to get up, waking up at 7 a.m. to get ready for school. It's no good for no kid, you know?
Did you play sports or anything like that in school? Or?
Yeah, I played basketball. I was a basketball star. I was a shooting guard. I was a man, you know?
Yeah. Did you think that might be something for you at any point? Or was it a dream, or was it just kind of like, that's my other thing I do?
Well, yeah, it was always a dream. I dreamed I would play for the Knicks, you know?
Okay. But it's not too late, bro. They could use you.
Hey, listen, you know what happened? I got older, and as I got in high school, I just became a knucklehead, right?
Okay.
I was like a really bad high school kid. Like I was just kind of like doing it.
Tell me about that. What happened? What did you get into?
Any and everything, man. any and everything, you know. It was kind of one of those things where, you know, my mother and father got divorced, so we were like, the kids were kind of split up. My oldest brother and then we moved out.
Where did you come in the lineage of the siblings?
I'm the next to last. My sister's the youngest, and then me, and then everybody else. So yeah. So when it when it got to that, it was just kind of like, just kind of running the streets, staying out late, doing whatever.
Were you living with your mom?
I was living with my father then.
Okay. And how was that with your father? Was he not real happy about that, or what was his?
Yeah, I mean, of course not, but yes, he wasn't happy about me becoming a knucklehead, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were off doing things, like my parents got married when they were young. So you talking about my father being like 30 at the time or something like that, right? 35.
Yeah.
Going on 40, right? At that time, right? 30, really not even 40 yet. I can't even imagine.
With a whole pack of kids. Yeah.
Yeah, with kids. And then he was the rock star in the church himself, the pretty boy deacon. And then, so that's a whole nother thing, right? So, I mean, because the church, like our church is like its own. Every church is like that. It's like it's
a microcosm of
exactly right.
Microcosm of the world. Yeah,
all of those people operate just in that world. There's rock stars. There's politicians. It's all of that, right?
Yeah,
you got the pimps, the hustlers, the everything, right? That's all in that. So you got many people that just live in that world, right? It's like we're super holy, but we live in this world, but we're all doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Right. It's just in the name of God, in the name of Jesus.
I was just going to say, was that something that you thought about as a kid? And was it something that made you say, man, maybe there's more out there? At what point did you mentioned that you heard Stevie Ray Vaughan, you were secretly listening to rap tapes. Was it something that you started thinking like, man, maybe there's something else out there beside the church?
So I became a knucklehead in school, then kind of got, kicked out of school, then let back in. But then that was sort of like the awakening for me to and that's when I really got focused on playing the lap steel, pedal steel guitar.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot happening. A lot of my friends, that was like the 94 crime bill, right? Cops were just locking every black person up, and the whole throwing the drugs on people and all that. It became a whole Ponzi scheme of kids going to jail. So I've seen all of that.
Yeah.
And it also happened to me too. But I was lucky that my father knew the detective, so he got me off while my other two friends went to jail, right? And got caught up in the system, and they're still there now today, right? So that really got me focused, really staying in the house playing the guitar, right? And that's for those next 3-4 years, it just became all about me playing pedal steel guitar, 11th, 12th grade. 11, 12, kind of all happened fast, right?
Yeah.
And so all these things were going on in the neighborhood. And as I was getting older, it was weird. Like when I got, I think, 18, 19, I think 19, right? Then our church, which is called Sacred Steel, right? It was coined. Our church music and the story started to get documented.
Okay.
By a guy named Bob Stone. It was a record company called Holy Records, which is like this folklore record label. And they started to tell a story and print articles about the church's music. And then that led to the first ever Sacred Steel recording. And then there was a second Sacred Steel recording, which I was on, which then was a part of this sort of thing called the Sacred Steel Convention, right? Which led to all of the different players from our church and then other like country pedal steel players. And it was held in Sanford, Florida, right? Mm-hmm. And we get there, and that was the first time. This is funny, right? Like I'm now 19 going on 20. So this is the first time that we all saw that white people like this music.
Okay.
Right? That was literally because there were white people there, Bob Stone, our Holy record label, people from the community. So that was the first time I was like, well, wait a second, man. Like this is much bigger than what we've been doing in our church, right? Because all of the guys that I named from like 1920 all the way up until 1999, right, that played in our church, they could never play outside the church, right? They would be chastised. And,
oh, wow.
be called the devil if you tried to even go play at another church, right? Let alone going to play a blues club or something, right?
Yeah.
So they never had that really experience of saying, the hell with this, I'm going to go and be an artist, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
So that Sacred Still record came out, and that was the first time that I said, well, wait a second, man, it's white people that like this. This is much bigger. This music has this much bigger effect than what we've been doing in this little Chitlin circuit.
Yeah.
Right. There's a much deeper connection of connecting this music and who I am and who we are as, bringing love and light, joy to the world through this music.
Yeah.
Right. That we've been keeping to ourselves for so long. Right.
Yeah.
So right around 99, 2000 was kind of really when I just decided, like, and trust me, that like the church chastised me and that whole thing.
Yeah.
And when we immediately start to go out, I was like, okay, I'm gone. I'm gonna go play for white people now. And or just basically whoever shows up at these clubs, right?
Yeah.
In New York City, where we started. And that's where it became like part of the jam band scene, because we immediately started playing bars, and you had like, at that time, it was like, it started out as like the Widespread Panic message board, right? These fans would come down, and it was just weird, right? Because we know Annabelle and Brandy and all of them, right? So those were our first fans. Annabelle was like at the first ever Robert Randolph. I don't even know how she was there, but she was there, right? The first time I ever played outside the church at a bar on Avenue B called the Lakeside Lounge.
Oh, yeah.
He was there. This other guy, Sammy. From that point on, it turned into this whole entire whatever.
Yeah. It just mushroomed out. And the word of mouth on you guys at that time, I remember, because I was in San Francisco and hearing about you guys all the way in San Francisco. And what was that like for you, though, kind of making that move out, and did you have to ever have like a sit down conversation with your mom or dad or anybody at the church, or was it just like, look, we ain't looking back? Man,
it just really to be honest with you, it just happened fast. It happened so fast to where, they would kind of be like, I'll never forget, like after one of those shows, it was actually after, because I was living with my father then, and I told him, I was like, hey man, I'm gonna go play at this club tonight. We got a show. He's like, a show? Like who? It's like, well, it's us, and we're gonna go play.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, well, you make sure you're gonna be, because actually at that time I was working as an assistant paralegal at this law firm in Jersey. He's like, well, you just make sure you be back for work. Make sure you get up. Don't be out too late. Because by that time I was 19, right? 20, actually 20, right? And I was working at that place, right? So we started, and we opened the show at the Bowery Ballroom for the North Mississippi All-Stars.
Oh yeah,
because the North Mississippi All-Stars had then heard about, because they were from down south, so they had listened to the first two Sacred Steel recordings, right? So they were kind of influenced by that.
Yeah.
So that was the first time we played, and I remember we got home. It was this whole entire thing. We sat in, we did the finale with them. And I remember getting home at like 2 a.m. My father was like, what are you doing? You smell like weed and alcohol. You've been smoking weed and alcohol. I was like, no, man. You should have seen this, man. There were like 500 white people screaming and dancing and yelling. And it was a great thing, man.
And smoking weed.
And it was just turned into this whole, from that day on, it was kind of like, I guess this is what we're going to be doing.
Yeah. I want to jump a little bit further ahead and just talk about some songwriting. At what point did you say, all right, I'm going to start making my own tunes? Was it before this, or was it, when this part of your life started happening?
Yeah, it was basically when all of this started happening. See, like up until that point to where I told you, like we would plan for the North Mississippi All-Stars, we were still just kind of like trying to figure out how to be the best church players, right? I was just trying to be as different as I can. At that point, I was like, well, I'm going to be the best pedal steel player in my church, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to learn, it's kind of like I used to study all of the older guys, right? And I was like, I just want to be that. And up until that point, I was like, well, maybe we got to start composing our own tunes and some songs. And then a lot of that stuff is what became Live at the Wetlands.
Yeah.
Right. And then going into Unclassified. Right. So what's crazy is, but right before that, which was when I met the North Mississippi All-Stars and John Medeski, we recorded this record called The Word, which was actually like the first studio recording I ever made.
Okay.
And the Word record was a tribute to Sacred Steel. So it was like, actually, those guys were going to do the record themselves. And I think they had reached out to some of the other players from my church to see if they wanted to be a part of the record. But all those older guys were like, man, we can't do that, man. The church is going to throw us out. Yeah. So I remember my manager at the time called me and was like, hey, man, I think I got this great opportunity. These guys reached out. And they want to get you one of the Sacred Steel players to play on it. They want you to be a part. I was like, really? Like, yeah. So I remember being pissed off because they were like, yeah, they were recording it was like doing the World Series when the Mets played the Yankees, and the Mets is my team. I was like, these silent idiots, man, you don't schedule a studio session. This is the biggest thing going on in New York. Right. So we was recording that record. I was watching the Mets in the Yankees World Series and all of that. So, but yeah, that was sort of like that whole time. So going into Live at the Wetlands, which was literally like things that we played in our church. And I had sort of rearranged and twisted a lot of the things around, but all of that was like stuff that we play in church. Yeah. Literally all of it, everything about it. Yeah. Right. I mean, I kind of changed a couple of things around. We made it a little more whatever. Right. Yeah. But that was all stuff we played like on a regular Sunday or Friday night in church. And then coming out of that, just being around all of the different, all of you guys, and seeing all of the different ways that this could evolve into songwriting and songs and all these different things. That's what led to the next phase of Robert Randolph and the family band and whatever else we were doing. I mean, all of the different collaborations. It just went, man. It happened. Yeah. I'm telling you, man, it all happened so fast to where I swear I didn't even really start understanding everything till probably like 2010. Wow. Because it was like, I mean, you know how it is when you're younger, right? You're just going.
You're just going. Where's the next gig? Let's go. And then you get to go from a van to a tour bus, and then you're on the tour bus for months and months at a time. And
so for us, So for us, it's kind of like you do that, you go, you be gone. You know how it is. You just be gone for 4 months at a time, right? Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry. I'll see you, Mom. I'll be back in May. It's like February, and you just go in the whole country, and you like barely sleeping. And then so you come home, and then when you get home, it's kind of like, you still got to deal with your family who like they don't even understand that.
And were you still playing in church when you got home? Was there
a little bit? Bit. The other guys in the band played at church more. It was kind of weird, right? We were all in the same band. But I was the bad guy and they were like the good guys, so they could go play and not me.
Yeah, because you took everybody away, huh? You were the one.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you guys play now, what part of it is still church for you? Like, do you view what you do as not necessarily the Christian ministry, but is it like ministry to your audience, to the world, to bring people love and light through music? Or how do you view that?
Man, I view it just as the way you just put it, man. It's the world is a church service, man. And see, that's the funny part about like growing up within our own little walls. You realize that the message of teaching and spreading joy, because don't forget, like my whole life was based on going to church. Why did you go to church? Right. To find joy, right? To help you grow, right? To have this experience with all of these other church members who are there, and kind of one hand reaches out and grabs the other when somebody's down, right? Mm-hmm. And we all there to help pick each other up. So when you see that, as we're traveling around the world and we're making music, and you're writing songs, you figure out that it's all a big church. And my job, right, is to not really try to be like, it's like you come to the realization, you're like, okay, great. I can't write all the great love songs like John Mayer, right? Or I can't be like Gary Clark Jr. Or I can't be like Eric Clapton. I have to be who I am, because this is my upbringing, right? It's weird. It's almost like kind of like, it's like, you would hear people go like, hey man, why don't you really like dig deep down into the blues? I'm like, well, bro, I didn't grow up in the freaking Mississippi Delta with the blues and juke joints. I grew up, I grew up total the opposite of that, right? Our juke joint was a church, and it was like you jamming, and the songs are different, right? It's like you don't go in church and go, oh, my baby left me last night. I want to shoot her ex-husband in the face.
Yeah.
Church is like, oh Lord, save me and pick me up. I feel good tonight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So all of those songs. So, I feel like that's my duty, right? Coming into the music industry. That's who Robert Randolph is. It's a duty. Hey, you the same way, you're like, you beat us all with the damn joy and love and happiness now.
Well, that's what I feel is, my lane and my gift that I guess I get to share with people is that's what music did for me growing up. It was the thing that I went to when my life was really hurting. And I always found a way to find transformation through just listening to music or through playing music. And on a personal level for you, do you still get that when you go on stage? Is it like there's still just that transformational thing of, man, God, this feels good?
Every time I get on stage, man. It's just the weirdest part. It's just who you don't really realize how big what music does. I don't really realize how much what music does for me until I get out on stage and you see those faces. Then your whole responsibility to others, as well as you like lifting whatever weight I had off my shoulders walking onto stage. You realize when the music starts and you see the faces out there, it's just kind of like, wow, we're in this together. Because I really had a bad day or a bad week. And you're going to give me something that I need, and I'm going to give you something that you need, and we're going to do this together. Right. Yeah. And it's every single show. That's what it's like. I don't care if the show is 40% full, 60% empty, half glass, half full, right? Yeah. Whatever it is. It's the same joy over and over and over. And that's just what the power of music does. And it's funny thinking about that, man. I was telling somebody, it's just like looking at, we've been through the pandemic, we're here, we're still in it, but that moment in time where you're watching the whole world and people freaking out. It's like, man, can you imagine like everything Bob Marley wrote about, sang about is so like today. Nothing never really changed. Yeah, no. That's kind of the sad part of it all. Yeah. Here this guy comes from like Jamaica and all of that, right? And bringing his roots of where he came from and bringing that stuff here, sharing it with the world. And don't forget, like, he wasn't the most popular cat singing about that stuff in those days. Right. That's what a lot of people don't know, man. There's a lot of people, just like how we listening to music or you were listening, like, man, what the hell wrong with that person, man? Where's all that love and joy and so and so and equality and it was so strange, right? At the time. I mean, I listen to older people, like my grandmother was telling me that. So she's like, man, well, when Bob Marley, like nobody, like that dude was like, what is he doing ruffling the feathers? Trying to shake the world up. Ain't nothing ever going to change. That's what was the mentality back then. Right. And when you look at, where even though we've come a long way, we still got a long way to go. It's just so relevant today. Yeah. Every single word, every single lyric of all of his songs.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you a father?
Yeah. I got one.
Now, as a father, you came up through this, you described grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents up to you now. How is the musical line coming through your family today?
It's still there, man. I mean, it's still, my daughter likes to play music. I try to keep her away as much as I can. But it's just in our blood. I got nieces and nephews and little cousins, and it just keeps going, right? Because our church, and they're connected to the church. It's just a musical bloodline, man. Like that can't be taken away.
Yeah.
Right. But in terms of like music and it's kind of weird because, right, you get older. You know, the weirdest thing is, right, we like the music we like, right? And I'll just tell them, I got into this big argument the other day because somebody started going off about certain artists today, the young ones. I was like, look, man, look, my daughter likes that. All of her friends like that. That's going to be the music they grew up on. My father ain't like nothing I was listening to. I don't care what it was.
Yeah.
His father didn't like nothing he was listening to. Right. The lyrics are all strange to all of us as we get older. And that's just a circle of life. That's just what music is. But during every time frame, there will be other artists who will pick it up. Just like I got a whooping one time listening to NWA. Right. Listening to NWA record. I got caught. Right. Wasn't supposed to be listening to that. It's the same way. Right. We like, we don't want our kids listening to Nicki Minaj and Cardi B. Right. But they sneak and listen to it. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then it'll be some artists that'll come by and evolve the whole scene. That's just what music is, you know? So whenever people's like, oh, that's not music. It's like, well, when was it ever music? Because I remember my parents saying that to me. I'm sure your parents said that to you. And then like Marvin Gaye was like weird to those people coming up. Right. Yeah. And Jimi Hendrix was weird to the older people. Right.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
You're somebody who I think dyed in the wool in music. You know, it's hard to imagine you being anything else. But if you had to be, like right now, what would you do?
What do you mean? Like
if you had to pick something else, if you had to pick something else, like music just wasn't, it was done, or you were sick of it or whatever, for whatever reason, the world stopped liking music and you had to choose another profession, what would it be?
I would say it would be, see, my hobby is kind of like doing construction, right?
Okay.
So I would be a general contractor, like a house flipper. That's what I would be.
You'd have your own show?
Totally.
I like it. I think you should do it anyway, man. The Robert Randolph home flipping show.
Let me tell you something. I fell off a 10-foot ladder like about 7 months ago, and it's lucky that I'm still in one piece. So, right, that kind of stuff. I'm out there on a ladder, and I was like trying to step onto the rail of a deck, and I missed the deck. And next thing you know, so my neighbor was like, after about 5 minutes of me laying on the ground and getting up, the neighbor was like, he's like, "Man, you okay? I thought I heard something." I said, next thing I know, the ladder was, you know, I just thought you dropped the ladder or something. I didn't know you fell. I said, man, I fell and bust my tail, man.
Oh my God. We're lucky to have you, man.
I know, right?
I'm glad it wasn't your wrist or your hands or something.
Tell me about it.
Or something worse. Hey, I got one last question for you. And it's the question I ask everybody on the show, which is, what does it mean to you to be human, and how do you stay human?
How do I stay human? First of all, what does it mean to be human? It means everything to be human. And humanity, being human, being humble, that's what human is. Being open to criticism, being open to growing. I don't think we never stop growing and learning. Wow. Right? Mm-hmm. That's what it means to me. And the way I do it is immediately when I come off the road, I call my grandparents or my aunts or uncles, and they will have me over their house cleaning up or doing some yard work or doing something. I'd be like, I pay people to do this. Yeah. Like, who the hell are you yelling at? Like, you know, like, get over here and make sure you, didn't I say, hand me that broom and that mop, scrub this down. That's my grandmother. Yeah. So that's what'll happen. And go to church too, because when you go to church, right, you just, for a moment you're a star, and the next moment you get yelled at. Like, okay, what are you doing? You're playing too loud, or get over here and help us clean up the church.
Yeah, keeps you grounded immediately.
That's what it is. And in between all of that, you drive around the neighborhood, and you for me, I'm constantly inspired by and motivated now to really help out a lot of inner city, a lot of disadvantaged people all around in education reform, criminal justice reform, from a community aspects, making sure the community, especially the church community, becomes involved in the community and helping out and help lifting and picking each other up, bringing all of the different experience that we get to see, right, all across the world, and sort of bringing these ideas and bringing people together to uplift each of our communities, especially my home communities here in New Jersey and New York, because I know the area now. I know politicians, I know teachers and police officers and different people who are struggling. I know gang members. I know these different people. And it's like everybody, we all need to sit down, talk to each other and help each other. That's what I'm really motivated by now. So providing solutions. Robert
Randolph, you are a very good person. I don't care what anybody in the church says about you.
Thank you, brother. You are too, man.
Yeah. Man, thanks for just sharing. I didn't know anything about your life and growing up. I knew you're from New Jersey and that's where it stopped. So thank you for just sharing all this rich history. And I'm going to look up those records, the steel records. Yeah. Thank you so much for just continuing to share your light and your love through music. I know there's hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people around the world who have seen you now, who have walked away just being transformed. I feel that sense of spirit that passes through you whenever I see you and whenever I'm around you and just anytime we've had conversations. So thanks for being on the podcast today.
Man, thank you so much. You know what's funny? The one thing that I wish that I could do that I can't do, that I'm like totally motivated and one day I'm gonna get there, is to be able to be a yoga man like you, to be able to sit.
Oh man, you got to get on the mat with me, man. Bro, next time I see you.
That is the hardest thing, man. That's the hardest thing for me, man, to be able to sit Indian style, bro. I can't do it if you pay me $1 million.
Well, it's just like anything else. You got to learn the fundamentals and get other parts of your body open before you can sit there. So I'll get you. I'll teach you, man.
All right, bro. Thanks a lot, man. All right, Mike.
All right. So everybody go and follow Robert Randolph on Instagram, on Facebook. Look for his shows. Go to his Spotify channel. It's a great listen, actually. The things that are linked to your music there's so many surprising things of this generation and of older generations, so many musics that come up when you listen to his channel. It's a really great listen. As always, we want to say thank you to Gibson Guitars, and just another reminder to go to americansongwriter.com/suncast, and you can sign up to be part of the top 5 podcast episodes that will come right into your email through the weekly newsletter. So thanks a lot for being here on the Stay Human podcast. Peace, y'all.
Peace.